Hello and welcome to another League of Legends commentary. So today we're going to look at some of the new items that have been updated in the Season 3 patch. And there's just way too many freaking items to try to go all over them in one video. So today we're just going to focus on support items. And when you look into the shop for the first time, you'll see that it's changed significantly from what you remember. On the left-hand side, you can see that there are the recommended items. So there are a suggested starting item. So often that's a Doran's, some sort of Doran's item. Although it's still also quite good to start with boots and health pots. So that really hasn't changed. I think you usually want to, for top or mid, for the most part, you want to start with boots and health pots. There's essential items, which are usually best for the laning stage. They are the first items that you want to get as soon as possible.
30 seconds until
and then there are two sets of other items called offensive and defensive items. So you want to have sort of a mix of these in most games. You can try to build all glass cannon, but you're very squishy, so that's a trade-off. So if you are in a game where you never seem to get attacked or focused or anything like that, you can certainly boost your damage as much as possible. But usually that's not going to happen, and you want one or two defensive items. So things like Zhonya's Aurostas are very strong for a defensive item. Okay, so now that we've gone through the recommended items, we can switch up the display. So you can see they can go in large mode and small mode. Obviously, when in the smaller grid mode, you can see more items on a page, and it's sort of like a more concise and sort of easier to navigate view. And this is sort of obviously less concise, but in the recommended items, it sort of gives you an idea of what they do if you don't know that already. And if you click on the All Items tab, I'm just going to shift between the two views. So this is the more condensed view. You can see all the new items that have been created. You can load up builds in the builds load up, and I'm not sure how you do that yet, but I'll figure that out. And you can sort of save a build and then just load it so that you can easily know what to buy and things like that. I think it'll help with guides a lot. And then there's a search tab. So like, let's say I want to buy a health pot. I can just search for it, and it'll pop up on the health pot, and you can just click on it and click buy. So you can search for items. And also there's the items have been broken up into 4 different groups: defense, attack, magic, and movement. That's pretty similar to the way it was before. And you can click on, for instance, you can click on defense to see all the defensive items. So these will give you any of these stats. And you can also alternatively click on the subsection of health if you want to see what health items that you're interested in. Another really awesome thing that they've added is filters. So let's say you're building a champ and you're like, okay, I'm taking a lot of damage. I need some sort of AP/defense item. So you can say like search for health and AP, and it'll show you a list of items that are both give you a bunch of health and give you a bunch of AP. So that's another way that you can quickly on the fly sort of make strategic decisions, and I really like this addition to the League of Legends Season 3 patch. Alright, so I said I was going to discuss the possible item choices that you could have for support. There are a couple different supports that you can choose, and I'm just going to I'll start off talking about the AP supports. So they've removed Heart of Gold, so that is no longer standard item choice, but there are still several GP10 items that you can still purchase, and those are still good choices for support. So the first one I'll talk about is the Philosopher's Stone, and you can see it's a GP10 item. It builds from 2 things that you want early game, so both mana regen and health regen. So those are good. They're kind of like health pots and mana pots that you get to carry around in your backpack. And this can be built into a Philosopher's Stone. Now this is a great early item choice, and I usually rush it on my supports, and I think it's still quite good. The Philosopher's Stone can build into 2 items, and before no one ever got Elisa's Miracle, and pretty much because it sucked. But now I think it's actually quite cool, and it's an interesting choice to rush because you can see that it basically gives you a free item. You can see that it increases some of your, if you're running Heal, Revive, or Clairvoyance, you can reduce the cooldown significantly. So you can use this in combination with some of those choices, and also it gets consumed, so it disappears from your inventory, so it permanently increases your stats without taking up an inventory slot, which I think is awesome. So this is I think now a viable choice to get. because one, it doesn't take off inventory slots, and it gives you permanent stat boosts. So I think it's become like a viable item. Shurelya's, obviously, it's still great. It gives you less health regen and mana regen, but it's still very good, and it also, still gives you the CDR and the move speeds bonus, so it's usually still a great item to get for supports, and it helps you initiate team fights and also back out of team fights or chase people down. So it's still great, and I think that's still a great choice to build your Philosopher's Stone into. The second GP10 item that's still in the game is the Kage's Pick. So let's go to AP Power, and it builds out of Amp Tone. And this is great that they've changed 3 new items that the support can get, and they're also very match dependent items that you can get for your team. So the first one is, oops, let me just move. Okay. Morellonomicon. That's very difficult to pronounce. Morellonomicon. Whatever. Okay, I think I was close enough. And this built out of the Kages. It gives you CDR, so it's good on champions that need CDR and AP, so Zilean's obviously a good choice for that. And also, it inflicts grievous wounds, so if you're fighting against a Swain, this is definitely a great choice to counter a Swain with your support item. So you can really do something that's very useful for your team to reduce healing. The second item that I'm going to discuss that builds out of Kage's Pick is Twin Shadows, and this gives you a reveal and also a slow. So if you're fighting against someone like an Evelynn, or someone that can cloak like a Shaco, any of those champions, Akali, this is a great item because it gives you a reveal and also it gives you a slow, so it makes it easier for your team to kite. Alternatively, you can even buy this item, if you're facing an AP heavy team, because it gives you magic resist, and just use the slow as basically extra CC for your team. And the third and final item, which I usually actually build the Kage's Pick into, is the Shard of True Ice. And what it does is, one, it gives your ally champions a very sort of insignificant increase to mana regen. But another nice thing about it is it keeps giving you gold. As you can see, a lot of if you build a Kage's into any of the other items, it stops giving you gold. But if you build into this, it continues to give you gold. Another great thing about it is that it gives you extra CC. So you can stick this on your AD carry. It's hard to remember to do this, and I've been buying these items, and they've been sometimes underwhelming because I don't use them, and it's just hard to remember that. But if you can you'll start learning it the more you play on how to use these items successfully. It's just a little difficult starting out. Anyway, you can stick this on your AD carry or your bruiser, and he can jump into your team and into the enemy team and slow them all down. Or if you stick it on the AD carry or the AP carry and bruisers are jumping on you, you can slow them down basically and prevent them from doing that. So those are 2 great things that you can do with Shard of True Ice, and it's I think it's my favorite item to build from Kage's Pick. All right, so those are the GP10 root items that are going to be very cheap to build, and you'll want to build very frequently. Another item that you want to build and this is mainly for mana intensive champions, is you get a Fairy Charm, and it builds into your Chalice of Harmony. And there are still 2 routes there's an additional route of what you can build it into. So before, you could only build it into the Athene's Holy Grail, and it was pretty expensive and somewhat difficult to build for if you were a support AP character, for instance Zilean. But it's still great, and you often want to consider that, as a choice. So, but the new item that they've added for, and I think it's great for support, is this Mikael's Crucible, and mainly the main target for this is your AD Bruiser. So your AD Bruiser is going to have a fair amount of health, or alternatively, your tank, he's going to have a lot of health. And they're going to jump into the team and get stunned and slowed and all sorts of stuff and won't be able to do anything. So what you do is you have to be somewhat close inside the fight, which makes it a little difficult because, for instance, if you're in Zilean, you want to be in the back line. But if you want to use this, you have to get up pretty close to the team to use it on your teammates. So that's just one thing you have to keep in mind when thinking about using this item and purchasing this item. Whether can you get into near the other enemy team without dying and use this successfully. But anyway, you want to use this on your tank or your AD bruiser when they want to jump into their team and have difficulty. And the reason it's so strong on those characters is because this gives them a percentage of their missing health. So if they have a lot of health and tanks stack health, then it's going to be great. Additionally, if they get stunned or slowed and they really do need to be up in the team's face, then this item is also very helpful to your teammates. So those are the basic additions to that I think most strongly affect the support classes as far as late game final item choices. There are a couple other early game choices that you might want to consider. One is Crystalline Flask. I think it's great. You need to use about somewhere around like 8 to 10 health pots in the game for this to be cost effective. So if you're only going to buy and you're only going to buy a couple health pots, then don't buy this. This is not going to be good. But if you want to, if you're pretty confident that you'll use like somewhere around 8 to 10 health pots, then Crystalline Flask is great for that to save money. Another great item for supports is the consumable item choice, and that is Ruby Sight. There's two reasons this is very good. It makes buying wards very cheap. So you only spend this once, and you don't have to keep spending all your money on wards. So that's a really nice addition. And the second reason that you want to get upgrade from the Sightstone into the Ruby Crystal is it gives you bonus health and an extra ward that you can place. So the Ruby Crystal is great because as you're going to be squishy as a sport, and when sometimes increasing your stats is very strong, especially if you're a sport that is getting focus or is taking AoE and things like that. Then obviously getting some extra stats and effective health is very important. And so one thing to note is that you get 4 charges for this, and you can put down 2 wards. And that means basically that there can only be 2 active wards on the map from this at a time. So you're going to have to keep track of how many wards you put down, which is a little annoying in that you'll think, okay, I need to ward this, and you will have forgotten that you already have wards out, so you move it, and then you're like, shoot, I just lost vision on something I needed. So just try to keep track of where you place wards. But still, again, it's a great item. It's very cost effective, and it prevents you from spending lots of gold on paying for wards. Another item that supports traditionally get is Oracle's Elixir, but it's been severely nerfed in that it only grants vision for 5 minutes. So you only want to get this, I think, when you are trying to secure objectives, for instance, Baron. So, people ward up all around Baron, and when you want to contest it, you want to buy this elixirs. And so instead of dealing with invisible champions, I think you might want to consider vision wards now. Although, Oracle's Elixir is still very strong if you're pretty confident that you're gonna be fighting, within 5 minutes. It's kind of like getting an early, magic pot or health pot. They're strong, they give you. It's very cost effective, and it's great increases in stat bonuses. But if you don't fight, or you don't clear wards, you don't get some objective with this, you basically just wasted gold. So this is a risky item to get, and you should just sort of keep in mind those considerations that I discussed when deciding whether to get it or not. Okay, so those are the basically only support items. I mean, a jungler could get Ruby Sightstone. It's not bad for a jungler, or other lanes that are warding a lot. It can become cost effective and certainly worth consideration. But usually it's going to be bought on the support, I would assume. But now I'm going to discuss some after you've gotten these items. So let's say you've got your Sightstone. You've built your Philostone into a Shrelia's or Elise's Miracle, and you've built your Kage's Pick into one of the Kage's Picked items I've discussed. There's still a bunch of new considerations to consider. One is Banner Command, and this is fine on an AP support, but it requires a certain team comp and team strategy, so I think it's a little bit riskier to get in solo queue. And this strategy is the push strategy. So there are plenty of powerful pushers, and those are people with lots of wave clear, so people that do AoE damage and can spam that AoE. And so if you're in one of those lanes and you want to consider doing this strategy, and you've discussed it with your team, they're all on board, you can definitely go down this route. And you can take enemy teams off guard, doing this strategy. They'll totally be surprised when your promoted minions push in all their towers and they can't do anything about it. So that's certainly something to consider. But the only problem is it requires a fair amount of team communication and forethought to pull that off. So I'm a little bit hesitant to get that in solo queue. Another item you can consider getting on your sports is any of the traditional AP items. So Death Cap, Riley, Zonias, those are all good items to consider getting on your support. As far as other AoE auras, I think Aegis of the Legion is still great. It gives you great stats, and I think it's still a great item for supports to get. Locket of the Iron Solari, I really do not like getting on support, and I actually think it's okay on tanks. And the reason that I think that's a reasonable choice on tanks is, one, it's very cheap, so it's very cost effective, and two, the bonuses aren't going to be that great on a support. Maybe like for some reason you're positioning very poorly, or you need to be up in the middle of the team, and then these stats are going to be useful. The great increase in effective health. But if that's not the case, then if I'm Zilean, what are these stats going to do for me? They're probably not going to do very much. And the other problem with getting on support is you're going to be underleveled in comparison to your team. So the active, which I think is very lackluster, is not going to be that useful. But still, again, Aegis of the Legion, I think, is still a great support item. Another consideration for support item is the Runic Bulwark, and I, again, think this is better on tanks. Although it's still a great item, and if you have the money and you can get it, sure, get it on your support, and it's great to have team items because, for instance, the increase that it gives to your team is just so significant, and it's very cost effective. So, if you just look at the base stats for Runic Bulwark, it really sucks. 400 health, 20 armor, 30 magic resist for just you. If you're paying for that much, you'll be like, wow, that's way too much for those stats. However, if you take into account what it actually does, it gives you 10 armor, 10 nearby allies 10 armor and 30 magic resist, and 10 health regen per 5. That basically gives your team an additional, 120 magic resist. So you bind for 120 magic resist when you team fight, and 40 armor. So that becomes amazingly cost effective and a great item. So again, I think I like it better on tanks. So like a Malphite or something like that. I think it might be a better choice because especially top lane tanks where they can get a lot of gold and farm top lane. But if you can get it on your carry and it's an item that doesn't significantly decrease your effectiveness on a team fight, then I still think it's a great consideration. As far as other items, I don't think there's really any besides Mikael's Crucible and Aegis of the Legion. I don't think there's anything that's all that great in this. And also, Runic Bulwark. So these three, I don't think there are any all that great items in Magic Resist. But that's like a significant increase before last season. These items increased. So yes, there are a lot more choices that you can do to buy as support that can give your team significant abilities to deal with Magic Resist. As far as armor, again, I talked about the Aegis, the Iron Solari, the Banner of Command. These are all Frozen Heart, potentially Randuin's onlys, Omen in very specific situations. I think it's bad on a lot of supports. They have to be being attacked. And Runic Bulwark, those are some support item choices that you can get to deal with teams that are very heavy on AD. Health regen is still not very good stat. It's very expensive, so it's very cost inefficient to get health regen, and it doesn't usually scale very well into the late game. So regaining 2 health per second or something like that, or maybe an exception is Warmogs. If you're stacking health, then you can certainly significantly increase your health regen. But for the most part, health regen is very expensive for how much it costs, and it's not going to do anything late game. So stacking health regen is generally not an effective strategy on support. Although you do want some early health regen to extend how well you do in the laning phase, and that's usually right. You get health pots, you get the health regen items in the early laning stage, but not late game. Okay. As far as damage items, you're not going to be building too many damage items. I don't know why the bot just killed itself on turret. Anyway, you're not going to get too many damage items on support. Sometimes you will. For instance, sometimes when I was playing Blitz a lot, Season 2, I sometimes got Trinity Force because I, got all these kill stills and, did lots of damage and killed lots of people and got all these assists. But for the most part, you're not going to be building damage items on supports. Although, there are some support lanes considerations that you can build damage items. So sometimes people like to run Pantheon bot. So there are some things that you can do to actually, take an AD champ or an AD spellcaster and put him bot as a support. And, maybe that's something that people consider. I don't know too much about it right now. Another traditional item that's bought on supports is Zeke's Herald, and I don't actually like this on supports that much. The reason it's bought is because, like basically someone that needs the CDR and the health would want to buy it, and also can take advantage of the attack damage and lifesteal. And obviously this, supports can't really take advantage of any of those stats except for the health, the base stats. And it really only enhances the abilities of like one or two of your champs depending on what your team comp is. So, it's great for the AD carry. It gives them a nice boost in lifesteal and attack damage. But, if that's all, if the rest of your team is magic damage, then it's not like that great of an item. Alright, so these are some of the basic support items. Let me see if I just missed anything. Critical Strike, attack speed. Again, there's some champs that want that, but I might do a video that covers specifically 80 support champs in the future. And these are unusual, so like you'll probably get trolled for doing them, and I certainly get trolled a lot in games when I choose unusual characters. They're still viable if you understand what you're doing and you're playing them right. All right, so for the last item choices that you're commonly going to buy with supports is your boot choices. And sometimes you want to be a roamer. So, for instance, if you're Taric or Blitzcrank, sometimes roaming is an effective strategy, and you can get boots of mobility to really greatly enhance your mobility. And then you can also upgrade these into one of five different choices. Home Guard is okay if you're going back to base a lot, obviously, and that's if you want to travel between lane and base a lot, or if you can take advantage of that. So if that's the situation that you're in, like you're fighting a really aggressive lane, and you're killing people a lot, and you're also dying a lot, and you need to do that a lot. It's kind of like getting a free teleport in some ways. It basically greatly speeds that up. So that's the consideration when you want to get Home Guard, and that's kind of a situation where supports want. Sometimes they poke a lot, they harass a lot, and they get focused down, and then they need to go back to base. So Home Guard is certainly a choice that you can consider getting on a support. Another consideration is Captain, and I think it's actually very good, and I haven't seen anyone use it yet, but it's not going to be great on supports unless they are running into the middle of the team, because allied champions don't get the boost unless they're running towards you. So that's just something that you need to consider. Are you a support that gets up in the middle of the team? Okay, if that's true, then the enemy team, then Captain's not a bad choice. Fervor, it gives you bonus move speed, and that's great and all. It really depends like what you want to do, but I don't think it's that great of an item on support. Cooldowns reduction is fine on supports. I just don't think it's that interesting. I'd rather not spend the money on that if possible. And also the extra move speed. So I think a lot of times like I'd be happy not upgrading these boots in favor of getting better items. But if you've maxed out, then the things that I talked about before, like for instance Captain, Home Guard, those are certainly some items that you can consider rushing to get an advantage in your lane. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I gave you some good ideas on what to get for your support and how the new items have changed supports. Don't forget to rate, subscribe, comment, etc.